Hello, my name's James Patterson, and in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to drop a person into a different background. We'll start off with our girl here against the brick wall and the door, and you can see it's going to be fairly difficult to isolate her from the background, seeing as she's got dark hair against a dark background. So we'll use some different selection techniques and then turn that selection into a layer mask to give us ultimate control over the isolated area. We'll then drop her on top of our background here and make a couple of adjustments to bring the whole scene together and give us something that looks like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up our BG Swap Before 01 JPEG into Photoshop. So the first thing we're going to do is to use the Quick Selection tool to give us a rough and ready selection of the girl. So you can find the Quick Selection tool over here in the Tools panel. Then you can use it just like a brush to paint in a selection. So we can resize our brush with the bracket keys, right for larger, left for smaller. Then just paint over these areas to select them like this. It's seeking out those edge areas and snapping onto them as I work. So it's going to do a fairly good job around the lighter areas of the girl here, but I think it's going to struggle around the hair because the hair is so similar in colour to the background. We'll have to use a different technique to select that. So that's selected quite a lot of the background. We can hold Alt to bring up our minus sign, and this allows us to subtract from the selected area. So just painting again with the Quick Selection tool to subtract parts of our selection like this. And let's try and get this area under the arm here, and then releasing Alt to go back to our plus sign to add to our selection, then going back to Alt to subtract. And I'm just going to pause the video while I continue refining this, and I'll come back to you when I'm done. Okay, so here you can see I've just spent another minute or so just tidying up the edges with the Quick Selection tool. Now let's go to Refine Edge along the top of the screen here to enter our Refine Edge dialog box. Here we can use the sliders to make our selection much smoother. So let's check Smart Radius, then let's bring Smooth up to about 2, I think would work well. Let's set Feather up to 0.5 and bring Contrast up slightly as well. So the hair is still struggling to snap onto that area. So let's grab the Refine Radius tool in the Tools panel here. I'm just going to paint over the hair just to see if we can isolate that area any better. So just painting over the edge, and trying to stay outside of the girl, but just painting over the edges of the hair to snap onto those edges. I think that's giving us a slightly better result. It's still not perfect. I think we're going to need to do some painting to really make the hair stand out. So let's hit OK to apply that. So we have Smart Radius checked, Smooth 2, Feather 0.5, Output to Selection. Let's hit OK to apply that. This will give us a selection again. And then we can then change this selection into a layer mask. So let's duplicate our background first by clicking and dragging it to the Create New Layer icon here at the bottom of the Layers panel. And then we can then click on the Add Layer Mask icon to turn that selected area into a layer mask. So you can see I have my layer mask here next to my layer. All of the black areas are hidden, only the white areas are visible, and this is much more apparent if I turn off the background layer. You can see how that's working. Now we can refine our mask in much the same way as we refined our selection earlier. So let's go to Select Refine Mask, and let's hit F to cycle through the views and find a view that works best. I think our checkerboard view works fairly well. Now this time let's choose slightly larger settings. So we'll set radius at about 8.5. Let's bring Smooth up quite dramatically. And maybe let's bring Contrast up slightly and knock the Shift Edge back to about -10. This time I'm mainly interested in the body area here, so let's zoom in and see how that's looking. Just want to soften those edges slightly around the body. That's looking fairly well. I can see the hair still needs a lot of work, but let's hit OK to apply that. So we have 8.5, 36, 9 and 10. Hit OK. And then let's go into Bridge and open up our background image. So if we click on Bridge here, let's open up our BG Swap Before 02 JPEG into Photoshop. Then let's click back on our girl And let's use the move tool. If we select the move tool, make sure you have auto select layer checked up here. Then we can click on our girl and drag her. So I'm going to drag her up to the tab here at the top of the screen for my other image. Then, still holding the mouse button down, I'm going to drag down into the image and release to drop her on top of our background like this. Then we can use the move tool to position her exactly where we want her. We can also transform her by, if we check this option here for show transform controls, this will bring up our bounding box, which we can then use to click on the corner there and rotate. And we can position her over here. We can also hold shift and drag the corner of the bounding box to resize her if we want as well. So I think maybe somewhere around there like that looks good. Let's double click to apply that. And not only have we copied in the girl, we also have her original background completely intact, hiding behind our layer mask here. And I can demonstrate this if we hold shift and click on the layer mask thumbnail here in the layers panel. This will temporarily disable that layer mask, and you can see there's our original background with that annoying wall completely intact behind the mask. So let's hold shift to activate the mask again. And now we're going to use the brush tool to paint around the hair and fine tune our mask. So let's select the brush tool over here in the tools panel with white as our foreground colour. We need to make sure that we are working on the layer mask rather than the image part of the layer. So at the moment you can see we have the image thumbnail selected here. If I click on my mask, you can see the mask thumbnail is now selected with the highlight box around it. This means I can work on the mask and add or subtract from it with my brush tool without affecting the image. So let's zoom in nice and close to the hair, and then I'm going to paint with white around the hair like this, just to reveal that background. Next, let's flip to black. So flipping to black, and then we'll resize our brush slightly smaller and just work over the hair like this to try and fine tune the mask. I'm using a tablet at the moment, which really helps for intricate painting like this. If I just switch to this side, I'll show you how we can quickly select a few of these strands and isolate them from their original background, just like this. If I maybe lower the opacity of my black brush to about 30, I can then paint in these gaps to gradually build up that mask over this area. So we're just painting to low opacity so that we're working slowly to reveal some of the colours from the background without it looking too fake. Just like that. Let's flip back to 100% and work over the rest of the image like this. I'm just going to pause the video while I continue adding and subtracting from this mask to fine tune the areas around the girl. Okay, so here you can see I've just spent a couple more minutes working on the mask with the brush tool to fine tune those edge areas. I'm just going to finish by adding a couple of adjustment layers to help tie the whole image together. So let's click on the add adjustment layer icon here in the layers panel. Let's choose curves, and we'll just make an S-shaped curve by plotting 2 points, one to drag down in the shadows, the other to drag up in the highlights, just to boost the contrast of the overall scene, make it a little bit more punchy. And then let's add a second adjustment layer. Let's choose color balance this time, just maybe increase the cyan slightly just to give us a cooler finish, somewhere around -18. That looks good. Okay, so there we go, that's our finished image. Thanks very much for watching.